I'm back. You are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in the zone, comfortably zoned network, and we have an all baseball day. Paulie, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there again, late behind the eight ball.
Well, it's like a Chinese fire drill.
Right.
And it always seems to work out at the end. We lost Nancy today.
Right.
And but the good news is we have Jerry Feidelberg here. And Jerry, how are you?
I'm doing great, Ralph. How about you?
Beautiful. I've counted them up. I think this is your third guest shot in out of the 10 shows that we've done. So that gives me an idea, or it should give you an idea, just how valuable you are.
Well, thank you, Ralph. It's nice to hear it.
How I'm appreciative of your knowledge, of your passion, of your enthusiasm, and your very being. Thank you for being my friend.
Oh, you're welcome. Goes both ways.
Good. How you doing health-wise? Everything progressing as
it's coming along. I see the surgeon today, and she will look at the wound and see how it's progressing. Last week when I was there, if you can see I don't know if you can see it.
Right.
The wound is about that big. It was originally about this big. Now it's down to here. So it's filling in, and I feel good, and I hope to resume. I'm scheduled to go to cover the Red Sox game for sports radio service on April 3rd. So that's coming up shortly. I have to pick up my credentials with the A's, and I think I will go to opening night. Should be interesting. Beautiful. Will this be the last year? We don't know, but we'll find out.
It won't be the last year. You know, they even if it all goes well, it's going to take 2 or 3 years to build a stadium. So they're going to have to make arrangements somehow in the Bay Area. I suggest that they lease the Giant Park when they're not there, and put some money in the Giants' caucus, and good deal for everybody. What do you think of that?
Well, it depends. The Giants deserve to be paid rent because there is expense. You have to have people working in the park and maintenance and all that stuff. So rent is a distinct possibility. The Giants really don't want the A's playing on their turf. They've made that quite clear in the past. The A's are in negotiations with the city of Oakland at the current time. There's 2 or 3 things that the city is requesting that the A's will never give them. Number one, the city wants the A's, all their stats, histories, and name to remain with the city of Oakland. That will never fly. Major League Baseball will not agree to that because it belongs to the A's. The other thing that they want from Major League Baseball is to be granted an expansion team. And Major League Baseball is not going to do that. So it's a negotiating chip, a bargaining chip, something that in order to get what they want, the A's want to stay here for the additional 3 years because they are getting close to $70 million a year from NBC Sports Bay Area. And if they go outside the Bay Area, probably 30, 40 miles past the Bay Area, they will lose all that money. And the A's need it. As you know, they have one of the lowest payrolls in all of Major League Baseball. They're entering the season this year with a $53 million payroll. Last year it was $47 million. So, and they're not going to be drawing well because the fans are voting with their feet. They want Mr. Fisher to sell the club and have a new owner come in and do what's necessary to get the A's back to championship level.
Don't you wish there was eminent domain?
Yeah, that would be nice, but it's kind of interesting. There's only one pro team in all of sports that's owned by a city, and that's the Green Bay Packers. And so the Packers are never going to leave, and maybe it should be for all of the cities. You know, when you write your name across the chest, you're advertising the city of Oakland, or the city of Boston, city of New York, and people identify your franchise with the city. So it does have some value. So
Oh, it has a lot of value.
yeah, maybe it
Imagine
is.
what Oakland is losing. Not only are they about to lose the A's, and as you say, unless the shovel is in the ground, discount it. And I think there's enough protest um, by the teachers union in Las Vegas, as an example, to really put a damper on what's going to happen. They they think, silly them, that if a city can afford to buy a ballpark, they can afford to educate their kids. Isn't that ridiculous in today's day and age?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The it's a long way from getting done. The A's have come out with renderings, and they look nice. They call it the armadillo, uh, and it's an interesting design for the ballpark. Yeah, the stadium will be on 9 acres of land in Las Vegas, on one of the busiest street corners in all of Las Vegas Boulevard and Tropicana Boulevard. The Tropicana is going to be demolished, and we haven't seen any renderings or cost or time needed to rebuild the Tropicana, and we don't know how much we're expecting the A's cost to be about 1.5 billion, $1.5 billion to build a stadium, but they really don't know, and people don't know how it's going to configure with the Tropicana. Are the fans going to have to enter through the Tropicana? A lot of those people on the way into the ballpark might spend a little money at the crap tables or the slot machines. Maybe we'll be doing that. Uh, and it's going to be and also the hotel and ballpark is near the airstrip, the airfield. And will that how will the building affect planes coming and going into the airport? Remember, the A's had a problem with the Oakland estuary, with the maritime union, and with the shipping people. Uh, they're worrying about that the lights from the ballpark at Howard Terminal might affect traffic into the estuary and might cause problems with ships coming into the estuary to unload their cargo.
Is there any negotiation between the city and county and the A's going on
Yeah,
behind the scenes?
I can't believe they're going to meet again.
Okay, all right. So it isn't a dead deal.
Well, it's important. The city, I'm sure that the city wants an increase in the rent, which is not it's not unexpected. Things cost more. They get one $1.25 million in rent now, and I don't know if that's enough to pay all the security people, the maintenance people, everything necessary for the police to be there, and so there are expenses. And as you know, things go up. And I don't know when the original contract was driven. It was done between the A's and the city, but things cost more. So maybe they have to pay $2 million a year. The A should be able to afford it. It doesn't seem like it's a huge amount of money.
Fisher has never spoken out about all of this, has he?
Who is? Oh, Fisher.
Yeah.
We haven't heard a word from Fisher on the negotiations with the city. I think Dave Cavill is doing it, or perhaps the legal department for the A's. but we haven't have heard a word. And of course, the only thing Fisher said is that the A's lost $40 million last year. But we don't know if that's a paper loss. And when I say a paper loss, when you have a business, you have income and expenses, but you also get depreciation. And depreciation is, players, believe it or not, can be depreciated. And so, on their tax returns, they get a tax break. And so maybe it's a paper loss. We don't know. We'll never see the books. And the Major League Players Association can't see the books. So we just don't know. We have to take Fisher's word for it. But Fisher's in a mood to move to Las Vegas, and he's going to do everything in his power to get his team there. I know he wants. It's going to be kind of difficult for him to be a lame duck for 4 years, but that's the situation that they created by announcing they were going to Las Vegas now.
Well, what could they do?
Well, they could have waited. They could have waited.
Okay. Well, they wanted to make a deal, and I think they were pressured by baseball that they were going to lose the franchise.
Yeah, Rob Manfred was not. He talked out of both sides of his mouth. Earlier, he said Oakland is a major league city. It's in a major league market. We should have baseball there. And then he said you can't rebuild on the Coliseum site. That's not acceptable to Major League Baseball. And who knows what else they said. And it was really kind of amazing. The A's had spent so much time on the Howard Terminal project, and they were going to meet with the city. And 2 days before they were meeting with the city, they dropped the bombshell that they had bought 49 acres in Las Vegas, and they were going to build a stadium there. And that didn't happen. They scrapped that deal within a week or two, and then said, no, we're going over to 9 acres over at the Tropicana. Now, I know Major League Baseball has been
remiss.
Well, they've been trying to get the owners to build ballpark villages like they have in Atlanta. And in fact, the area around Fenway Park in Boston, they're building condos and townhouses. They're planning to build that in the near future. Now, they didn't say anything about when the Yankees went into the new Yankee Stadium in 2009. They didn't say anything about, well, it's the South Bronx and you can't build there. They let the Yankees build there. The Heinz Field in Pittsburgh, that was very close to Forbes Field or Riverfront or Three Rivers Stadium. And they had Cincinnati, the ballpark was right next to Riverfront Stadium. St. Louis, the ballparks are in the same area that they were. So who knows what they're thinking at Major League Baseball. I know that, and of course, Manfred's going to leave in 5 years, but I don't think the A's can wait 5 years for him to leave. So it's a tough situation. I thought that the project that they were planning at Howard's Terminal was going to be a benefit to the city. They were putting 3,000 housing units, I think, and there was a dispute over how much should be for low-income housing or affordable housing. And the other thing that happened was that San Francisco, because of COVID, a lot of the office people in San Francisco and the tech companies moved out. And San Francisco has been in a mini recession in regards to getting people to come into the city. Starting to get a little bit better, and with the development of artificial intelligence, there may be more workers coming back to work in the city. A lot of the workers working at home just never came back, and they're still working for their same companies.
Right. Jerry, let's take a time out a little bit and talk about the on-field development of the A's or lack of development for the A's. It's spring training, and I want you to talk in positive terms about what's going on. Is there anything that you see? And they could only do so much, and we know what the situation is. But can we be surprised by somebody exciting us, either a pitcher or a batter? Um, Anything to look forward to? Anything to get out of the house and go to the game? A reason? If you're a long term baseball fan living in the East Bay, tell me something to make it worthwhile.
Well, there are some good young players on the A's. Uh, you got you got Ryan Noda at first base, who has a great on base percentage. Second base, they got a guy who was absolutely fantastic last year when he was called up, Zach Geloff, and they signed J.D. Davis, who was cut by the Giants, and the Giants got a black eye for what they did to Davis. Davis,
What do you suppose caused that? Did he? I know he lost in arbitration, but it was like $300,000 difference. And are they
Davis,
that petty, the Giants?
Davis didn't lose in arbitration; he won.
Oh, I'm sorry. He won in arbitration, but he
Right?
won. It would have been 600,000 at the most, a
Yeah,
difference.
he became expendable when the Giants signed former A's third baseman Matt Chapman. Matt, as
A
you know,
good
he's a
signing, by the way.
good signing. He's played. He was managed by Bob Melvin for 4 or 5 years in Oakland. And Matt Williams was his third base coach. They worked together. So two pretty good third basemen. And Chapman has won a couple platinum gloves as well as several gold gloves. And he was a big pickup for the Giants. And Davis became expendable. And there was a in the fine print of the last major league contract that said if a player is awarded an arbitration win, uh, he can be cut. They only have to give him 1/6 of the salary.
Well,
So the Giants saved $5 million or $4 million. Uh, Davis got back. He signed with the A's for 2.5. So he got 3.5. He was going to get close to 6. So he's still about 3 million short. But there are incentives in his contract with the A's, which will allow him perhaps make another million. So he'll get 4.5 million. And I know it's really tough to live on $4.5 million salary these days.
no, but they should get what they deserve.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. And they're going to have whoever did that contract at the Players Association, they ought to be fired.
right, absolutely.
So the A's pitching staff, uh, I don't know. I don't. It's in flux. They got guys like Tarnock. They got I think his name was Estes, and they got some young guys that came up at the end of the season. I think Boyle was one, and Sears is okay. Sears gives up a lot of home runs. He had a tough season last year, but who knows? He's a left-handed pitcher, and they need lefties. And the A's are an unknown factor. Langoliers will be their catcher, the primary catcher. I think Carlos Ruiz will be backing him up like he did last year. Ruiz can hit pretty well. Uh, Out in the outfield, they got another Ruiz in center field and base stealer, and Rooker in right field or DH. So they've got people that they picked up, and they got some talent on the team. But if they don't get the pitching, they're going to lose another 100 games this year.
yeah, that's true. Tell me about your beloved Boston Red Sox. Are you excited about them at all?
The Red Sox finished last in the Eastern Division the last 2 years, and they fired their baseball guy Chaim Bloom, who worked wonders with the Tampa Bay Rays.
Oh, he had a
Uh,
great rep.
but
Mets
Bloom's
wanted him in the
yeah,
worst way.
but Bloom was charged with developing the Red Sox farm system, and he's done a good job because Dabrowski was there. He got rid of all the prospects for high priced talent. So the Red Sox went in a different direction. They fired Bloom and they brought on Craig Breslow, who was a relief pitcher and did well for the A's for a few years. Breslow went to Yale and considered one of the smartest guys in all of baseball. So
Just like
Breslow
you're
went,
considered one of the smartest guys in all of podcasting.
yeah, exactly. He's a real
Yeah,
smart dude.
it's a great analogy.
Yeah, and
And I mean
Breslow,
that, you are definitely a renaissance man.
thank you.
Isn't just law you talk about, isn't just baseball, isn't just pharmacy. Your case with Alioto is classic. That's one of the biggest cases going right there.
Yes, we to digress from baseball. In 1993, I was the first plaintiff to file a case in the United States. Joe Alioto filed it, and we filed it against the pharmaceutical manufacturers for their multi-tiered discriminatory pricing practice that they had engaged in that put community pharmacy at a deficit as other entities, for-profit entities. For years, nonprofit entities like hospitals and Kaiser Foundation were able to get discounts, major discounts on the drugs. And the manufacturers would then cost shift to the self-pay pharmacies. So we were paying the highest, but the hospitals weren't competing with us. As things developed, and this goes back about 40 years ago, mail order companies started coming in. Pharmacies, mail order pharmacies began, and because there was an entity known as pharmacist benefit managers who sold their programs saying that they could control costs to people, to firms, businesses, health plans, to control their pharmacy costs, and then they entered into contracts with pharmacies, which were contracts which were take it or leave it contracts. This is what you're going to pay you, take it or leave it. You can't negotiate. We're never going to give you a raise. You're never going to see any more money. Take it or leave it. But if you take it, you're going to take all our BS. Or if you leave it, you're going to lose your business. You're going to go out of business. So it didn't matter. One way or the other, you're going to go out of business. One, because you weren't making enough money, or two, you lost your customers. So a lot of pharmacies signed up. But the mail order pharmacies and the pharmacy benefit managers, some of them were owned by the pharmacy benefit manufacturers, created a formulary. And by having a formulary, if a doctor wrote for a drug for one high blood pressure medication and it wasn't on their formulary, they would call the doctor and say, "Doctor, we can save you money, save your patient money by shifting you into this other drug." And what they did is they were getting rewarded for increasing market share for the manufacturer. And we were not allowed to do that until we sued them. And when we had an initial offer of $600 million to settle the suit. We've been the largest settlement in private antitrust claim in American history, largest one. And we wanted the manufacturers to change their practices. And we went to Chicago and the federal district court in Chicago, and it was like a scene out of the movie. I was in a courtroom filled with uh, reporters and TV people from all over the country because it's very important. And we showed the judge that we could do the same thing, that we could do the same thing in our stores, and the judge ruled in our favor that if we can show the manufacturers that we could move market share just like the PBMs, we would be entitled to the discounts ourselves. And so, and in addition, it went to the appeals court, and the appeal was heard by a very famous judge, Judge Posner in Chicago, and he upheld our claims. So the final result was that 40,000 pharmacies across this country received a settlement in the amount of $720 million, which is a huge sum of money.
Can you tell us something about Alioto on a personal basis? You traveled with him, you really got to know him. What were some of his likes and dislikes? Um, Tell me something about the guy. He's beloved in San Francisco.
Absolutely. And I met Joe, and I was in his office in 1993. He always had nice suit, dressed very lovely, and he was old school. He literally took the case on a handshake, and he said to us, "If we're going to proceed in this case, I need $100,000 retainer, and I need $100,000 for expenses." And we raised the money. We raised the money from the pharmacies. And Joe is very, very smart, and he knew what to do. He laid out a strategy for us, and he said, in order to finance this suit, we're going to need more finance. Well, let me just backtrack for a second. So there were other people that were working on the lawsuit at the same time, but we filed it first, and we filed it in federal court rather than state court. We thought it would get there faster. And after we filed in the federal court, there were 70 other lawsuits filed around the country, and it was rolled into one. It became a class action suit. And once it became a class action suit, while Joe still represented us, they had 4 lead lawyers for the class. In order to be the lead lawyer, they had to put up $100,000, and those that sat on the committee had to put up $25,000. So they had a committee of 12, I think, and one of our attorneys was on the committee. So we had that, and we settled with one manufacturer for $1 million, I think, and that gave us seed money to file the suits, and it all rolled into one big case in Chicago. And I went to Chicago several times. And during the case the case was going on, and we had a lot of support. And Joe and I traveled all over the country. We went to Seattle. We were in Boston. We were in Orlando, Florida. We were in Nashville, Tennessee. And we laid out the case. And when we went to these places, we were asking for more money to support the cost of it. I think there were 70 million pages of documents that were produced. Someone had to go through that, read them all, a lot of expense. And as I said, it was a great victory. Joe was a very gracious man.
Were there times in the case when Joe had to call an audible, make changes? How did he respond to that when things weren't going his way, or even his way, if I could pronounce that? Finally,
that's an interesting question. I don't think that really came up. Really was a problem. we were in Nashville. We were at the Opryland Hotel. Certainly not a blue state. Tennessee is a red state. A lot of conservatives there, and we ran into some opposition from some of the member pharmacists that were there that thought we were wasting their money. They didn't see what we were up to or what we were doing, and they were giving Joe a hard time. But he dealt with it, and we were able to convince them that what we were doing. And my favorite line is, "You don't have to support it. You don't have to support us, but you might as well just give me the keys to your store because you're going to be out of business in a year or two."
Wow. Wow. Did that take? Did that message take? Did they
Yeah, they
finally come
understood it.
around?
They knew what was going on. They're losing business.
Okay. All right. Jerry, what do you see happening with baseball that's positive overall? Not just the A's, not just the Red Sox, not just my beloved Mets, but what's going good in baseball? I like to keep it positive today.
Well, I'm a lot of there's a lot of concern for the small market teams. They just don't have the revenue to sign guys like Otani, Trout, and or young talent, to lock them up with contracts because they're not getting the TV revenue that they should be. And
Excuse me, do you consider the A's to be a small market team?
no,
I don't either. I
no,
agree with you.
they're in the 10th largest market, eighth now largest market in
Okay,
the
and
country. Not all.
they
But
draw
Kansas
from
City,
Contra Costa. Um, they do. They could do just fine with the right management. That's
yeah,
my guess.
the ownership, the A's have really, the A's have been boom or bust probably since 1901.
Okay,
You know,
didn't mean to inter. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Connie Mack had good teams, and he had to sell off the players because he didn't have the money. He did that. He had the great teams in the 1928, 29, 30s with Lefty Grove and Al Simmons and Jimmy Fox. All those players were sold off. And then it was a long time before the A's got back and won a pennant. I think they went from the 30s until the 70s when Charlie Finley owned the club. But Charlie Finley, until 1974, they had the reserve clause where the players couldn't become free agents, and uh, Finley knew that he couldn't spend that kind of money to sign the players. So the and the A's have been boom or bust. Finley sold, the players like Joe Rudy and Raleigh Fingers and Catfish Hunter and Reggie Jackson. They all left, and that was the heart and soul of that 72, 73, 74 team. And then they got good with Walter Haas. Walter Haas was the best owner that the A's ever had. They spent money, they got free agents, they developed players, they did everything right. They won three pennants in a row. They won one World Series with Walter Haas. And then after Walter Haas died, when I was with the club for the 6 years, they had a terrible team, but they developed pitching. They had Hunter, Zito, and Mulder, and they got good again. And they had guys like Nick Swisher, and they traded them. They all are gone or left for free agency, and it took a while to rebuild it. And then,
That happened two or three times where
yeah,
they
that was
develop
their business
guys
model.
and have to trade them off and back and forth.
Yeah, it was their business model. They would develop prospects, and uh, I think I think they used to have just one arbitration year. When they had two, instead of having the player for 5 years and then trading them in the fifth year, I think they started trading them after 4 years. So it became very, very difficult. And the fans developed love for the team and the love for the players, and they saw their favorite players get traded away, and the team would be good and then would be bad, and so they didn't really have what you know, one of the things the Raiders used to have at the Coliseum was that signed commitment to excellence, and the A's didn't seem to have that or want that. They try to stay alive by making money the way they did it by developing players for other teams.
And for a while, they were on the dole of baseball too. They were supplemented by baseball. Am I correct?
They still are.
Really? I
Yeah,
thought that was coming to an end a couple
no,
of
they
years.
still get it.
Wow.
Yeah, and so as I said, John Fisher's not going to open up his books. It's a private company, and I'm sure that I don't know how he structured it financially, but he may be using the A's as a write-off for his other businesses. So I know the Gap is having some problems. So
I I
it's
know,
hard
but
to say.
what do you tell the kids? That's my question. Or the old folks like us. There's, it's just terrible. And by the way, if they want to get rent for the Coliseum, the city of they could fix the plumbing. That would be nice. Um, Fix the place up a little bit, and people might come just for the ambiance.
Well, if the A's are only going to be here 1 year or 4 years, I don't think they're going to do anything. If they had a new owner came in and said, "Look, I'm going to build a ballpark at Howard Terminal. We're going to be here for 4 years. Just do some minimal fix up. Yeah, the plumbing's important. Let's get that fixed, and still make it a place where you can bring your kids. Don't price the tickets where it's going to cost a family of four or $500 to go to a game. You know,
I will say this about Oakland: they have good food. They really do. I mean, San Francisco has good food, but Oakland, for ballpark food, expensive. But what isn't?
yeah, I think the food's better over at Oracle Park.
No question.
Yeah,
No.
and when the Warriors were at the Oracle Arena, and now they have Chase. The Chase Center is fabulous, but the food at Oracle Arena was just awful. I want to
Okay.
go to Warriors game.
Can you bring us up to date on how the Warriors finished the year, or how they're apt to finish? Was it a rebuilding year, or will Kerr, in fact, not be there from now on?
No, Kerr is going to be. He got a contract extension. The Warriors had were had injuries at the beginning of the year. They've had it's been difficult to get all their star players on the court at the same time, and they've been playing better lately. In the last, but in the last 10 games, they've lost 5 out of the last 10, and they really need. There's only 15 games left, and they're in 10th place in the Western Conference. So they would have to win in order to make the playoffs. They're going to have to win 2 playoff games to become the 8th seed, and maybe and have to go up against the number 1 seed, which who knows might be the uh, Minnesota Timberwolves or the Oklahoma Thunder, at Oklahoma City Thunder. So it's going to be interesting though, because both those teams are younger and taller. But last night they gave a game away to the Knicks. They beat the Knicks 110-99 in February when they were in New York. But last night the Knicks came out. The Knicks got on an 18-4 run to start the game, and the Warriors couldn't catch up. The closest they came was 4 points. They never led in the game, and the Knicks got a great performance from a guy that was only averaging 6.5 points per game. Miles McBride knocked down 29 last night, and he hit 5 threes. It took a while for the A's to get rolling. They closed the first half with trailing by 62-56. They came out They didn't do anything in the third quarter. Usually they own the third quarter, and they fell. Instead of being 6 points behind, they were 11 points behind at the end of the third quarter. And in the NBA, teams can overcome an 11-point deficit to start the fourth quarter. And when it gets to crunch time, if you're trying to get, you're always playing catch up as they did last night. They couldn't do it, and the Knicks defense kept the Warriors from the win. The Knicks are having a good season. They've won 41 games so far this year.
Brunson has really proved to be a terrific ball player.
Oh, Jalen Brunson had 34 points last night. He was sensational. And that was one of their jobs that the Warriors defense was to do, is to work on Brunson. They held him to 14 points in the first half. Well, any player who scores 14 points in the first half is pretty good. But in the second half, he scored 20. Excuse me. So he ended up with 34. But he was terrific. And with McBride, and they had all five starters were in double figures. Hartenstein, Brunson, and I can't think. Josh. Did I say Joshua? Yeah. So, but all five of the Knicks were in double figures, and Hart and Hartenstein each had a double-double. So,
hey, you're a fanatical Celtics fan from way back. Tell me a little bit. We never talked about Larry Bird. How did you see him?
Oh, I thought Larry Bird was fabulous. The Celtics had the big three: Bird, Parrish, and Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish. That was a steal. The trade that the Red Auerbach pulled to get Robert Parrish in a draft pick, which turned out to be Kevin McHale for J.B. Carroll. That had to be one of the greatest thefts in NBA history.
Well, maybe the second best deal that Auerbach ever made, Easy Ed Macaulay comes to mind.
Easy Ed Macaulay and Cliff Hagan for the rights to Bill Russell.
Yeah, and they were good ball players.
Yeah, they were all pros. The only NBA championships that the Hawks won, and they were in St. Louis at the time, was with
Cliff Hagan
and Easy Ed Macaulay. But
I think Macaulay was gone from St. Got by then, but I could be wrong.
No, he was there
for that championship year.
Yeah, because they got Bill Russell to come up and at the end, after he won an Olympic gold medal in Melbourne, and the Olympics were late, so I think he joined the Celtics in January of 1957. And all Russell did was get him 11 titles in 13 years. Not a bad trade.
And all Bird did was win 3 MVPs.
Oh yeah, they're great picks.
Yeah.
The Hawks won because Bill Russell was not able to play due to an ankle injury. That's how they won that. The Celtics would have won that championship. So
big Clyde Lavella got to win.
Yeah, Clyde got a ring with him.
Yeah,
and
Bob Pettit and Wilkins, and they were quite a team.
Yeah, well, you have to remember there were only 8 teams back in those days in the NBA, and all the teams, even though that they didn't play well, all the teams were very good. And in the early days of the NBA, the Warriors, as known as the Philadelphia Warriors, they won 3 championships. They won the first season, 47. I forgot the year of the second one, but they won in they won 2. That one in 55. Their third championship was in 75 with Rick Barry, when they were
I think they only won 1 back in the 50s.
Yeah.
But
Tom Gola,
Paul Harrison, Guy Rogers.
Right. Al
Attles, absolutely. Yeah. And Al Attles was a terrific coach in 75.
He's also a terrific person.
Absolutely.
We were at a game. I took my kids to the game, and we're in the seated in the seats. We're in the seats, and as we're leaving, we see Al Laddles, and I went up and said hello to him. And he chatted with me as if I was an old friend. Really,
Yeah,
very, very pleasant person.
that deep voice he had was
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
Uh, Bay Area has had great sports. It's not New York, it's not Boston, but for the years that you and I have been out here, we've gotten our fair share of entertainment. Football, basketball, baseball, hockey,
Well,
even.
yeah, when there were two football teams in the Bay Area, the 49ers won five NFL championships, and I got to go to a Super Bowl, and I went to the one in Miami when the 49ers beat the Cincinnati Bengals 20-16. That was the game with the drive where we were, the fans sit in the end zone. The corporate people get the good tickets. The fans sit in the end zone. And I was sitting next to a guy. We were at Joe Robbie Stadium, and sitting next to a guy who bought tickets from a scalper, and he was a Bengals fan. And it's late in the game. The Niners are trailing 16-13, and Joe Montana and company get the ball on the 7 yard line with less than 3 minutes to go. And I said to the guy, "You can go home now. The game is over." And and it turned out to be right.
Yeah.
Uh, Montana, Joe Cool, he comes out. Hey, he's telling the guys, "Hey guys, John Candy's over on the sideline." So we the Niners go down the field. He gets the ball over to the sidelines to kill the clock, and he gets down to the into the red zone. Everybody is keying on Jerry Rice, and who does he throw the ball to? John Taylor for the winning touchdown,
John
and
Taylor was very good.
it was
He,
excellent.
yeah,
Both those guys were phenomenal receivers. But as I said, the Bengals were watching Rice. They figured Rice was going to be the intended target, but he wasn't.
Joe Walsh was a genius,
That was
really.
Bill Walsh's last game as the coach, and we were on a charter flight home, 350 people, 350 guys. We didn't get much sleep because we were celebrating, but it was one wonderful experience, and I was very excited to go. That was a great day. So we had and Raider fans when I was here. Unfortunately, the Raiders did move away, and they had won their first NFL crown, I think, in 1976 with John Madden. But they had moved away, and they won their second one down in when Jim Plunkett was the quarterback, but they were the LA Raiders at that time. But there used to be Raiders used to be sell out in the heyday of the Raiders, and you could the Coliseum only held 51,000 people for football, but opposing teams didn't like to come here because the fans were like the 12th man on the field. They were so loud. But unfortunately, they went. And you talked about Joe Alioto and the Raiders. Joe told me Joe sued the NFL 5 times, and he told me about the Raiders move and how it happened. The Raiders were negotiating with the city of Oakland, and the county of Oakland, who owned half the stadium, to enlarge the stadium to bring it up to maybe 65,000 people because that's what the team needed to compete in the NFL for players. And the story that Joe told me was that Pete Rozelle, who was the commissioner of the NFL at that time, had a call with Lionel Wilson, who was the mayor of Oakland. And Lionel Wilson wanted uh, to uh, give the Raiders what they wanted, And Roselle said, "You don't have to do a damn thing. We have the votes and they can't move." And Joe Alioto, being an antitrust attorney and working for Al Davis, uh, engineered the move to Los Angeles and got $18 million from the NFL in the process. So Joe Alioto won 5 cases against the NFL.
Wow.
And we were coming back from Indianapolis, and you asked me about Joe. We were coming back from Indianapolis. I was coming back on a private jet. First time in my life ever on a private jet. Fred and his one of his fellow attorneys who had worked for Joe for a year before going on his own. His name was Fred Firth. These were both antitrust attorneys, and they had been in Boston working for Bill Sullivan, who was Joe's father-in-law. Joe's second wife, Kathleen Sullivan, had been a politician in Boston. She served on the school board, and Bill Sullivan was one of the original owners of the Boston Patriots, and they came into existence in 1960. And Bill Sullivan had done a deal where he lost a lot of money, or there was something, and he sued the NFL. And Firth and Joe were coming back from Boston, and I was scheduled to come back commercial on U.S. Airlines from Indianapolis. But Joe said, and Joe asked me and one other pharmacist, "Would you like to fly back to the Bay Area with us?" We said, "Sure." So on Joe and Firth got a settlement for $122 million. So they were in a good mood on the way back, flight back from Indianapolis. So we had a nice flight, and I sat opposite Joe for the entire flight, and we talked for hours. And one of the things that I remember best about the conversation, Joe, as you know, had been a rising star in the Democratic Party. He had been elected mayor of San Francisco. And as you know, I don't know if you remember, Look magazine did a hit piece on him that said he was connected to the mafia. He had no connections to the mafia. He won that case. But that's another story. On the way back, Joe regaled me of a story about what he did at the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago. Now, as you remember, in 1968,
Humphrey, right?
What?
Humphrey.
Yeah, this is and it was it was chaotic in Chicago because of the Vietnam War. There were protests all over the place. Joe told me it was his honor to give the first nominating speech for Hubert Humphrey to be president of the United States. I got chills.
Wow.
Who wouldn't want to do that?
Wow. Who indeed? Our good friend Eric Davis, Eric Gray, should be here to talk about Hubert Humphrey, and next time he will.
Oh, he loved him.
He loved him. Yeah.
I liked Humphrey. As you know, Hubert Humphrey was a pharmacist. He went to pharmacy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he went to pharmacy school. I think he went to they were from. He went to school in North Dakota, I think. But he was a pharmacist, but he never practiced pharmacy. He became the mayor of Indianapolis, mayor of Minneapolis, and went on to bigger and better Senate. And his speech in, I think, in 1948, denouncing segregation, gave everybody some hope that segregation would be over soon, and so that the black people in this country would get their rights.
Yeah, we're still hoping for that.
Yeah, it's better, but it's not there.
No, it's not there by any stretch. Not just black people. Anybody. And you know what it basically comes to? It comes to religion fucking it up for all of us. And causing the great divide, not only in the Middle East, but in California.
If you read the First Amendment, it says we shall not establish any religion. So there is no official religion in the United States.
No, go tell
There
that
are
to the
people. There are people.
evangelists with the money, and the money that these preachers make is absolutely disgusting. I mean, and they don't house the homeless or care about the homeless. Um, what a world we live in.
It's sad. A lot of the TV ministers like Joel Osteen and Kenneth Copeland and others, they they rack in tons of dough. People, little old ladies send in their checks, and
And
what can I tell you?
and these are the same little old ladies that'll eat cat food because they don't have enough money to support themselves. I don't mind people giving. I don't mind people giving with their hearts, but just don't be coerced into it. And if you're going to give to your neighbor because your neighbor needs it more than the church. And that includes the synagogue too. When I was a kid, the big joke was how much can you contribute to the synagogue and how much. How does that help? I mean, where does this craziness come from? And that, you know,
Well, you have to remember, religion is in essence a business. They have buildings, they have maintenance, they have to pay for anything. They have to pay for
I
electricity.
know, but they're tax free.
They
So
are
anything
tax.
they have to pay is pennies on the dollar. If you were a regular, how much did you pay? You weren't tax free when
No,
you
no.
had maintenance and supplies and what. You thought about it. The church doesn't think about it. The church, when I say put it in quotes, it's crazy.
One of the problems that people have in Boston is that so much of the property in the city of Boston is either owned by the church or by universities. And I think at one point, at least 50% of the property in Boston was non-taxable. So that meant that the citizens of Boston had to pay a very high property tax rate to get the services that they needed: police,
Not
fire.
just in Boston. The church at one time, and when we say the church, Catholic Church, they owned Yankee Stadium at one time. I don't
Really?
know. Yeah, they really did. And when you go to a Yankee game, at least when I was a kid, went to the Yankee game, you had nuns lined up with collection plates.
Wow, never saw that. Never
Yeah.
saw that in Boston.
Uh, did they have it in Boston too?
No, never
Uh,
saw it.
well, religion has always been the great bugaboo, but it's not just them. It's the unholy trinity: religion, government, and what? And big business.
No, big business.
Yeah, the combination of those three entities has made it necessary for us to not have good things, nice things.
As a retired entrepreneur,
Yes.
I, I believe in capitalism, and but I also believe in competition. And when we talked about Joe Alioto, and a lot of these corporate entities, big pharma, chain drugstores, a lot of the chains bought out the competition, and you go into some places, and you only get a choice. There are no more independent pharmacies, and there's only a choice between CVS and Walgreens, which isn't very much of a choice, but that's what's happened. Joe would say, I would have no trouble going into a courtroom and arguing the more competitors you have, the more competition there's going to be. And that's really true. So, but the Federal Trade Commission, for some reason, thinks that if two companies control 70% of the market, that's okay. The rest of everybody can scramble for the 30%. There's enough out there for everybody. But I don't see it that way. I wish there were we're more
Hey,
mom and pop.
clarification, Jerry. I believe in capitalism too, but
Yeah,
not when it's corrupt.
yeah.
And that's where big business combines with government, and the money lobbyists give to our representatives. Biden, for instance, who is just a regular guy, a congressman, for senator. Do you know how many houses he has? He's got a stable of wealth, and that shouldn't happen. Not,
Well,
I'm not picking on him, but you shouldn't go into one shouldn't go into politics to make money.
well,
One should be a podcaster to make money.
years ago, one of the
Yeah.
one of the politicians, Willie Brown was an assemblyman for many years, and he got termed out. One of the he didn't say this, but it was either oh some other guy in California who was Speaker of the House for many years said, "Money is the mother's milk of politics." Money is the mother's milk of politics. And what these politicians do, they're in California in the assembly. They're there till Thursday, and then they come home and they have fundraisers. And I've gone to many fundraisers for politicians, and they have their hands out, and they know who gives them the money. And one year I was being I think it was 1987. I was being installed as president of the Alameda County Pharmacists Association, and there was a state senator there. He later went on to become Attorney General for the state of California. But he made a comment to my wife, and he said, "Why should I do anything for you guys? The doctors give me more money," which was absolutely. I mean, he wanted to
It's criminal. That's
back
criminal.
off of that. But he apologized, but he was a little bit drunk when he said that. But that's the truth. But what we did over the years, and went to many of these fundraisers, guys like Elihu Harris, Bill Lockyer, several other guys, and Nick Petrus, and we would raise money for them. Pharmacy had a political action committee. I was on that. We raised the sum total of maybe $125,000. Now, that's a small amount of money. And yes, the doctors probably can contribute more through their association. But the thing that we wanted to do is, if there was a problem or a bill that came up affecting the professions, we would hope, or we could contact the person, he would know who he's talking to. And you would build relationships over time. The thing with term limits is that you can only be an assemblyman in California for 3 terms. So if you get active in the first term and second term, that's fine. Third term, you don't have to be active. They're going to be out of office. And so they don't get, you always have to educate these people because they don't really know your profession. They don't know what your business is. They don't know how the stuff is going to affect them. With the congressman, it was different. When I went to Washington, and I went several times, we sat in Pete Stark's office in Washington, and Pete was a good friend. He was a banker, but he was a good friend, and he knew what healthcare was all about. So he would listen, and I would go to his fundraisers. So the only thing we wanted was for them to understand our situation. They would, the politicians would say, I will drink their wine, I'll take their food, and I will vote against them if I believe it's the right thing to do. And that's something that you have to deal with. You're not always going to get your way, but at least you want to have your voice heard. And getting involved in politics is necessary if you want to have your voice heard.
Yeah. Hey, Jerry, was that Isla that just passed?
Yeah. Yes,
Put
Isla
her
is
on
right
the
here.
camera a little bit.
Oh, Isla, you're being paged. We want to put you on television. Come on
Come on,
over.
Isla. There she. Wow, Isla, you look like I would picture your daughter to look like, or your granddaughter.
Well, I have a daughter that looks just like me, and
Uh,
we're taken for sisters or twins, actually.
wow. Um,
Uh,
I
uh, Not only is
You're
Isla,
doing something right.
Isla's, we've been together now. This is our 16th year, and I am so proud of her, and I just think the world of her.
Yeah, well, rightfully so. And you're a great couple.
We
Okay,
have fun. We have a good time.
beautiful. Hey, listen, we got to end it.
Okay.
Time calls. We have Robert Cole coming in to talk about the Mets, and we could only put it on one camera. So, if you would say anything that you want to close it out.
Okay. 9 days to the start of baseball.
That's the best news today. Thank you, Jerry. It's always
Thank you.
been
It's been great.
it's always been great, and love it that you've become a part of the video podcast as well. Handsome guy you are. You face for video. See you soon, Jerry.
Thanks. Bye bye
All
now.
right.
All right, we're back here in-house.
In-house. Was that not pleasurable?
That was very pleasurable.
Oh, Jerry is always a great interview, and been a great friend, and loved having him. We missed connections with Nancy today, Nancy Finley,
Right.
but I don't know if she's in Texas, and I don't know if she had the wrong time, but we could just do what we do, and we dance. Tell me about how things are going with you, Jerry.
You've been talking to Jerry so long.
I
you forgot.
have Paulie B.
Well, it's been going good. I'm just tired. I'm just chasing my own tail. I brought up a couple weird stories, and I thought this would spark some conversation with us. The first one is all San Francisco. Totally San Francisco. It was the kind of thing that you would see in a heist in a movie, or maybe in a dream. A black bag stuffed with roughly $50,000 in cash was discovered by volunteers tending to a placid garden in the quiet San Francisco neighborhood. But it wasn't a dream. Last month, a group of community garden workers unearthed a Norrish mystery in the inner Sunset, a duffel bag filled with wads of wet, disintegrating $100 bills wrapped in red napkins. Volunteers with the Garden for the Environment discovered the cash in the late morning on February 28th while working in the garden. The bag of money was in a planter box underneath a row of which is used to protect crops growing in the plant bed. They thought it was a lot of money, but I didn't think they realized how much it was. The money was pretty much stuck together. Volunteers sifted through what they could of the bills and estimated the total of about $50,000, although some of the bills had been fused from being exposed to the elements, so the cash was difficult to count. They phoned the police, and guess what? The police were there pretty quick.
Oh, I'll bet they were.
Yeah.
I'll bet they were. But that's like choosing the police is like having Colonel Sanders babysit your chickens.
Well, if somebody had broken into your car or something else had happened, it might have been a little bit more of a delay.
Right. Yeah, it might have.
Been a
Right.
little bit more of a delay.
How much money? Well, we'll be right there.
Yeah. And so the police officers thought that it had something to do with the Lunar New Year because it's red napkins. It was money. I think I told you a week or two ago here, we had a lady that was handing money out to different people walking down our pavement.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, what's
Not
going
on,
on?
Not on Tuesdays.
No, it was funny because it was a Tuesday. It was after you left.
Oh.
And I'm standing out inside our little spot.
A microcosm of my life right there.
Well, I'm standing in our favorite little smoking spot,
Right.
our little 420 spot.
I think I know it well.
And I literally see this lady, and she's nicely dressed, and she has her iPhone like 14 out. It's a brand new iPhone. I'm like, every time I see somebody waving their phone around on the streets, like, here, come take it or whatever. Anyway, so I see her, and she's talking to somebody, and then she starts putting money into their pocket, like stuffs it into, like, if I was going like this to you, and putting, and the host that's on after you, I'm like tapping her on the shoulder going, what kind of weird drug deal is this? And I think my voice carries. Right. And so the lady turned around and looked at me, and then she like got a really weird look on her face and then started walking away. But she was giving money to two individuals that looked like they weren't total druggies. They weren't smoking fentanyl off tinfoil. They looked like they had taken a shower or whatever. They looked like they needed the money, but they weren't gonna just take the money and buy alcohol or drugs with it. Right. They looked like the kind of people who like, oh, this would get me a hot meal. This might get me a warm pair of socks kind of people.
There are people that are very, very generous, philanthropic,
Philanthropic, yeah.
And
that was the bag of money, literally a bag full of money wrapped in red napkins. They found it in one of those planter beds.
Wow.
That we see walking around.
And the volunteers that brought in the police, you gotta go, wow.
Right.
The police have brought in volunteers to help count the money. Probably not.
Now, who are we bringing into the conversation now? You wanted to bring someone else in?
We're going to bring in Mr. Robert Cole to talk about the Mets.
Okay.
And
you keep talking about Mr. Cole for a minute.
I will. Robert Cole has been one of the 3 or 4...
I'm going to have you talk to that camera while I go cheat.
I will talk to that camera. Thank you, sir. Robert Cole has been one of the 3 or 4 people, me included, who have been in on the Met Show on Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, the podcast. It's before the video. And Robert Cole is retired, living in Florida, from New York, great baseball background, great baseball Met fan, and he's an umpire. I don't know if you call him an amateur umpire, but he worked in baseball, in high school baseball, I think a little college baseball, and I have questions to ask Robert about a whole bunch of stuff. So we're waiting for him to receive the call, and we'll put him right on the air when we do.
And while we're waiting for Robert, I guess I should grab my other microphone since I'm on the other side of the room now. I'm going to give you another weird story. And we got a late start on it, guys, so it's kind of on us, more on me than Zig. Zig's here before I can even get here. And we're not even going to have to do another story because we actually got Robert Cole on the line with us. So going all the way over, I think it's over in Florida, correct? We're going over to Robert Cole. Robert Cole,
yep.
What's happening?
Not much. How are you guys doing?
Very well.
We're doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Good. How am I supposed to follow Jerry now? I've been watching the show.
Is Jerry unbelievable? Have you been listening to him?
Yes. He's got a photographic memory. I've got a pornographic memory. Okay? That's the difference between us.
That may serve you in some circles. You live and you learn. So, 2 things I wanted to ask you.
Yes, sir.
How does an umpire, a big league umpire like Hernandez, continue to have a job? Is that not a joke? Is the union so strong or that they couldn't buy him out for whatever it takes because 2 or 3 times a week there's highlights of his craziness, and it really, if this was any other sport, you would expect it, but it's baseball. Tell me.
Well, well, he's not really a major league umpire. Okay, we all know that. He's a joke, and it has to do with him filing suits. I mean, he's threatened to file lawsuits. He's gone to court. He's lawyered up, and I guess for whatever reason, Major League Baseball can't touch him right now.
Well, can they call attention to his inaccuracies and put that in court? For instance, if they could show the courts that it really does affect the game negatively.
Absolutely. Now they have there's a site that tracks umpires. They actually give them a report card after every game, and you can go on there, and he consistently has low scores, consistently, and don't know. I just that's a good question. I don't think any of the other umpires like working with him, but somehow, some way, either he has pictures of the commissioner doing something. I don't know, but
I really don't want to see those. That's me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, particularly, as a matter of fact, I could take pictures, but not
those pictures.
Not those pictures. Tell me about the Mets. How's it going? What's going on? My question of the day is: there still a possibility that Montgomery might be out there and signable? Because we need. I think they could be competitive with a first line starter.
He is out.
Diaz is
out there.
back. Tell me.
Okay, he is out there. I imagine, since he's a Boris client, and Snell just signed for 2 years with an opt-out after the first year, a team could get Montgomery on the same sort of circumstances. I just don't think that the Mets are going to be into that market. They feel that they have their starting pitching. Senga will be back probably, I'm guessing, in June. They have
sooner than that, according to some reports recently.
Well, he just had a setback, and he's not going to start pitching again for another week.
Meet the Mets. That's what it's like to greet the Mets.
Yep. So, but they have their starting pitching. They don't want to go into a large contract with anybody right now. They're counting on guys like Severino and Minea and Hauser to have big years because they're all in their walk year. Quintana also. So they got all these guys that are very hungry, looking to have that one more big year to cash in next year. So that's what they're counting on. I don't think they're going to make a signing. There's still talk about them signing J.D. Martinez as a DH. I don't see that happening either unless he comes down to wanting a 1-year contract, and he's been insisting on at least 2. And I'd like to see them, use the young guys. Vientos needs the opportunity to be the full-time DH, and we'll see.
How about the guy J.D. Davis, the guy who was traded from the Mets for Ruff? That didn't work out. It worked out really great on the field for J.D., and then he went to arbitration. He won, and that didn't.
But he lost.
But he lost, exactly. Is that not big business? The personification of big business.
But somebody in the union screwed up. Okay, they they were supposed to block that. They're supposed to close that loophole. Okay, so that couldn't happen. So that when a player went to arbitration, okay, that he couldn't get cut and basically not get anything. But they didn't. They left that open and the Giants jumped all over it.
Wow. Could the Mets benefit? Or did they want to? Did they think that Beatty and Vientos will carry them through?
Well, okay, I was hoping they would not sign Davis, and they didn't. The A's signed him.
Okay. I forgot about that. That was
Okay,
too
okay,
long for me to remember yesterday. Give me a break. I'm an old guy. A little older
I'm an old
than
man. I'm an old man. Um, but you don't want to bring in people that you've had already. J.D. Davis when he left, if you remember, bad mouth the Mets.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had bad things to say, and apparently they were in serious talks with him, but I guess the A's, came in with a little better offer, and that's where he went. And good luck to him.
Was there some rumors of Syndergaard talking to them a while back, and has he signed yet? I don't think so.
He has not signed anywhere. I've never heard anything concrete that he and the Mets talked. Um, I'm surprised that they didn't give him a shot. I'm surprised the Yankees haven't given him a shot. Uh, you know, you just don't know. You don't know what's going on in the background with
Is he
some
a
of these guys.
Boros client as well?
Syndergaard, I don't believe so. I don't
Okay,
believe so.
that always is a possibility.
Yep, yep.
Um,
But some of these guys, I'm like I said, I'm surprised because there's teams that they have needs. Uh, the Mets certainly could bring in an arm or two, but like I said, I think they're going to stay pat with what they have and go from there.
okay. How about Alexander? How close is he to signing an extension?
Alexander?
The catcher, Dougie
Oh,
Flynn.
Alvarez.
Alvarez, like Dougie Flynn. Um, I'm famous for, you get a name. McNeil is Dougie Flynn. Alvarez is Moshe Pipic. I don't know, but he's got some potential.
Oh, for sure. He's a power bat, and I'm amazed at the way he's improved his throwing. Okay, he's throwing guys out base stealing left and right in spring training, and that was the knock on him, last year, and when he first came up, that he couldn't throw anybody out, and he's really worked on his footwork. He's worked on what they call pop time, getting up and getting rid of the ball, and so far so good. And yeah, you want to lock him up for sure. You want to lock Alonso up,
Oh,
but
that is for sure. I can't imagine that Steve and Alonso won't come together. Although he's going to be a free agent, agreed upon that he's going to test the waters.
right, and he's a Boris client, and Boris always wants to take them, free agency. Um, if Alonso wants to come back to the Mets will sign him because nobody's going to outbid the Mets for him. Okay, so if there's, if he really wants to come back to the Mets, the Mets will sign him. If he doesn't want to come back to the Mets, he'll sign elsewhere for less money or the same money that the Mets would give him.
Okay.
That's what it's going to come down to.
Anybody in spring who has impressed you?
Oh, the one guy that's going to make the biggest difference on the Mets if he has a big year is Severino. Okay, if he reverts back to the way he was with the Yankees, uh, the Mets will make some noise. Um, he's been really good in spring. All the starting pitching has been really good in spring training. The other day on Sunday, they had a split squad game, and Quintana and your favorite McGill both got roughed up a little bit. But
Yeah, but he had
that
been
was the first.
McGill had been pitching very well until that
Hmm.
outing.
And Quintana also. So
Yeah.
they had that one rough outing. Um, Hauser's pitched well. Severino's pitched well. Minaya, ever since he cut his hair, has pitched well. So you know that's going well. You have Diaz in the bullpen along with Raley and Ottavino. So they have the basis of a pretty decent team that could get into the wild card, other than injuries. Okay, if there's injuries, then they may get short circuited. But if everybody can stay fairly healthy, uh, they have a shot.
Good. Hey, let's remember, if you would, Jim McAndrew, who passed away in the last week or so, fifth starter on the '69 team. He was. Everybody was key on that team. I mean, it came down to it. These pieces fit together so well, and McAndrew was terrific.
Yeah, okay. Like you said, he was the fifth starter in what basically was usually a four-man rotation in those days. However, Nolan Ryan would have trouble with his fingers with blisters,
Yeah,
and
that
got
brine.
got
They treat him with that brine stuff, that
pickle brine, right,
pickle brine. Yeah.
right. They
Um,
go down to the kosher restaurant and stick his hand in a barrel.
right. Now he's. I was going to say something about Nolan Ryan in a kosher restaurant. Um,
But that's not kosher.
that's
That's
not
not
kosher.
kosher at all.
Um,
Sorry, I had to take the
hey,
shot. I had to take a shot.
Paulie B, you remember our man Robert Cole, don't you?
Absolutely. How you doing, Robert? Good to see you, my friend.
Good, Paulie, doing good.
Yeah.
Good, man.
Um, yeah. So rest in peace, Jim. It's getting a little scary. We've lost uh, just too many people, including Siva, Carter from that team. Strawberry just had a heart attack. Um, Wishing him well.
You know,
Uh,
it, it's sad when guys from the '62 team pass away.
yeah,
Okay,
but
then
this is
then you
crazy.
go then you go to '69.
Right,
Okay, okay, when we were 15, though 20 or whatever we were, you
right.
know, now you have a problem with the guys from the '86 team. So it starts to get more and more real for us.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's something we cannot deny, but let's keep our memories and our passion for what we love, and that'll get us through. And speaking of which, we must pay homage to Mert. Marty Rose, recovering in Florida. He was, we talked about the Comfortably Zoned show, the
Hmm.
Mets. Marty, you and I, and Bernie too, we were key
Oh,
members of that. And
it was a lot of fun.
I,
You know, always, think about Marty. He still keeps touch with us online and stuff like
yes, he
that.
does. And I just saw a beautiful picture of him and his granddaughter um, lighting, lighting, blah, lighting up the room that he's in his bed.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
she's a joy.
She's a
Um,
cute. She's a cutie, and it's her birthday
and
today
you
also.
saw
So
the
let's wish her.
smile on Marty's face in that picture.
Yep.
Made me happy.
Yeah. So
Uh,
let's wish her a happy birthday.
yes,
It's her birthday today.
absolutely. Well, life takes over, and the thread of our lives. I know Marty and I. We go back to 1962 with the Mets. I know you do too. when you talk about these guys from 1962, you remember every deal that was made. Sammy White and getting Harry Cheedy, and,
Right.
and for Harry Cheedy, as a matter of fact, um, things will not ever die as long as we have those memories. And
Absolutely. And then, you go further back and I go further back. You still have your New York Giant memories.
yes,
I have my Brooklyn Dodger memories. And
Marty has Brooklyn Dodger memories as well. I think his dad was a Giant fan and his mom was a Dodger fan or whatever. But it's all come together following our memories back to the way it was New York baseball. The Dodgers and Yankees were just as important in our memories as the teams we rooted for, because they, without the Dodgers, there would be no Giant rivalry,
right.
and without the Dodgers and Giants contributing to the early Mets, how interesting that was on how many. I mean, Mrs. Payson was a Giant, and yet basically from Roger Craig to Charlie Neal, they had many, many more Dodgers than Giants, former Dodgers, when they formed the team.
Well, when you stop and think about it, there really weren't any former Giants. They wanted to have Johnny Antonelli, and Antonelli decided to retire. They wanted to
And
have,
but
bring back
Lowe's too. They had Lowe's
Billy
decide to
Lowe's.
retire from the Dodgers.
Yeah, well,
Um,
Billy Lowe's actually rode on the Thanksgiving Day parade float that the Mets put in there.
with
Okay,
Gil Hodges, with Gil
with Gil
Hodges.
Hodges, and I believe it was Charlie Neal on the float.
Oh, I don't remember that. I don't
and th-
remember that.
and
I
then
do
and then he
remember.
retired, without ever, pitching. So, uh, yeah, there's a lot of good memories. Then moving to Shea Stadium, also, with with the World's
Mert and
Fair.
I were among like 17 people we grew up with that played hooky that day and sat in the right field stands for that
Oh, on
opening
opening
day.
day at Shea.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
never take that away from me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Against the Cardinals.
yeah, some people say in conversation, casual baseball fan, well, the Mets have broken your heart so often, blah blah blah. Wouldn't have it just been easier to be a Yankee fan? They don't know.
No,
No, they
no.
don't know about the. Now, I kind of like the Yankees now. I would like to see a Subway World Series, but when it comes down to the Mets and the Yankees, for a Met fan, and I'm sure it's the same for a Yankee fan. So
Oh,
reversed.
absolutely. And, I have one friend that, is a big Yankee fan, but he also roots for the Mets, uh, except when they play each other. But I've never been able to do that. I've never been able to split my allegiance. I'm a Rays fan as well as a Mets fan because, they're the local team. But I could never root for the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Mets.
What did you do for a rooting interest when when the Giants and Dodgers left before the Mets were formed?
Well, I still rooted for the Dodgers somewhat, although it was difficult because when they played home in Los Angeles, I'd get up for school in the morning, and of course there wasn't, Sports Center and all that stuff. So if I didn't catch the 3 minute sports on the radio before I left for school, I didn't know whether they won or lost until I came home in the afternoon. So,
Beautiful.
but that was a bit of a long distance relationship. But my father took me to Yankee Stadium a lot. Um, I rooted for all the other teams, and kind of kept my interest that way.
Looking back, I had an awe experience with the Yankees, rooting for the Yankees, watching the Yankees. You didn't like the team because they were the Yankees, but
Right.
the individuals, Mantle, Berra, Maris,
You can
yeah,
deny the talent.
Right.
Bobby
Right.
Richardson, Tresh, Kubek. It was just Elston Howard, Yogi
Yep.
Berra. I mean, the catching, Blanchard, three guys were catchers in '61. They
Right.
all hit
And
20 home
they
runs.
all played, and he
Right,
and Ralph Houk played Berra in left, Blanchard in right, had Howard catching, and played all three catchers.
right. Tremendous depth. DeMaestri was a good utility infielder. Um, like I say, you had to just admire them, if
Just,
nothing
just
more. And it got me in tune with your worship. Everybody, Stan Musial would come to town.
right.
Wow, I mean, I'd get goosebumps. Ted
Well,
Williams.
yeah. Well, one of the years at before the Mets, we went to Yankee Stadium to watch the Red Sox, and getting to see Ted Williams in person, um,
And Detroit,
Raditz
how about that?
jumping over the fence,
Aparicio and
Louis,
Fox
right?
double play. Baltimore had Robinson and Robinson coming up. Um, it was and is just good memories.
It was good memories. It was different because there were only 16 teams.
Right,
Okay. My friends and I used to play a game. We'd get the Baseball Digest. In the back of the Baseball Digest, they list all the rosters and all the numbers. And we would play a game where we'd have to remember the numbers of all the different players. And you pretty much could do that. I don't know 75% of the players today, and I
yeah.
follow it very closely.
You follow it very closely because just numbers, the amount of teams
Right.
that has. Um, it's amazing how Baseball Digest. I'd go to camp in the summertime, and we'd hike into what we called Mayberry, Dingman's Ferry, and we'd pick up the Sporting News and Baseball Digest,
Hmm.
and we'd look for guys who would come up and to um, to replace guys during the year. And we were very concerned with numbers
Right.
and player numbers and what have you.
Hmm.
And Street and Smith was a great magazine during spring training.
Yes, it
And it
was.
wasn't until 60 or 61 that they put the numbers in the rosters, for instance, if they ever did. Um, they didn't realize how important that was uh, to fans. Um, we
Yep.
had
And Baseball Digest covered that. You know the
baseball, baseball
and
Digest, and yet the sporting news was late getting the news to you. Whenever you got the sporting news, it was 2 weeks late in terms of stats and what. But it covered everything. D ball on up. You could follow
yep.
guys on up. You'd read it from the back. Like I remember getting the sporting news and reading it from the back. Um, good
And
memories.
yeah, and it would take you 2 weeks to finish it all before the next issue came.
Right.
Well,
I
even
mean,
okay, so we've talked a lot about kids in baseball, right? Because I mean that's where we found most of our heroes when we were growing up, is in baseball and different sports, whatever we followed. But even collecting baseball cards back in the day, Mr. Top's representative, it's an educational hobby for boys and girls. They used to
yes,
tout. right? Because it had stats. You had to memorize facts. You had to know what was going on. You had to use strategy. Um, Even nowadays, kids are playing on video games on devices. That's kind of like why I liked board games. Oh, okay, here we go. We'll get Zig. Zig's got a little.
Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I got mine here too.
There you
All
go.
right.
And so he's got. He's
Yeah.
got. We're all sharing. We're about to trade some cards here.
We're about to trade cards. What a great life.
Yep.
Tell me what year again. Remind me what year you first went to games.
Okay, my very first game was at the Polo Grounds in 1954. It was a Dodger Giant game. Saturday afternoon. It was like late April, chilly, sunny. It was like walking into a castle. The Polo Grounds. It was a very darkish looking, building. We went in there. Pee Wee Reese hit a home run in the top of the ninth to win the game. The reason why I remember it so well is on our way home, I started to get a sore throat, and my father said, it's just from cheering and yelling and stuff. When we walked into the house, my mother looked at me, started screaming, called the doctor, put me in bed, took my temperature, wound up I had the mumps. Okay. And just to give you an idea, back in Brooklyn in those days, okay, this is 54, my father calls Dr. Bagner, still remember him, on a Saturday night. He came to the apartment, okay, at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night, okay, examined me, gave me a shot of penicillin, took out his little book, called the local drugstore, okay. The pharmacist lived upstairs. He came down, made the prescription, okay, let my father in. It was it was closed. It was late at night on a Saturday, and then sent him home with the prescription and a pint of Breyer's vanilla fudge ice cream for me. And I'll always remember that, my first baseball game.
Well, you brought back some memories for me of getting sick in Atlantic City, and
So much that you put your mask halfway on.
uh,
You're like halfway through the story, and all of a sudden the mask goes on, and I'm like,
I hate getting sick. Subconsciously, that
no,
must
it's
have
funny
been-
though. I'm laughing because he's going through the story. He's like, "Where's my mask? Where's my mask? I've gotta find my mask."
But,
You better watch out, Paul. You may have to put yours on.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Well-
I'm telling you, it's the old bag over the head joke. All right.
Let me talk about doctors in Atlantic City. I get sick same way. I come into the room. I had thrown up in the elevator on some woman, and it was New Year's Eve, and I threw. I got sick. What was funny was the husband of the woman, and they were dressed to the nines, goes, "Oh my God!" And I look over at him and threw up on him too. But anyway, I get to the room and my mother calls the doctor, and the doctor was the house doctor of the Traymore Hotel in Atlantic City. And he comes in and he stutters. And he says, but nothing wrong with the stutter, Biden's stutter, but he stuttered a lot. And, well, he's sick of you, we're going to need to, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the thing, my father says, "How much do we owe you?" He goes, $10. No stutter. That's what reminded me of the story. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, not at all.
Anyway, we are down to it time wise. You be the Mets man, and we'll bring Bernie in on occasion. I'd like to bring Bernie in to talk about politics, and I'd like to talk to you together. You both live in Florida. It's I think about going to Florida. You know that all Jews are required to retire in Florida, so I'm breaking rules by living in California. But I joke, but politic-wise, I couldn't see myself living in a state. Um, how do you
Well,
adjust? Well,
I'm okay. We moved down here in '87. All right, and they had a Democratic governor and two Democratic senators, and things have changed tremendously in that time that we've been down here. Um, Gotten really crazy. Something that's going to be interesting is that our esteemed governor has said in July that he's going to release all of the documentation in the Epstein case.
oh,
Okay, and that's got Trump absolutely livid and crazy. Okay, he started attacking DeSantis again after he said he wasn't going to attack him anymore because Trump's pictures are all over that. Okay, that file.
so are
And
Clinton's. So are Clinton's, by the way.
yes,
There's a
yes,
lot of the big and powerful that are tied up in that mess.
Yeah.
The only
yep,
person that's getting off lucky is Epstein.
yes.
Yeah.
He's the
But
only one. And I hate to use the word getting off and easy and Epstein all in the same sentence, but there we go.
Right.
Yep, you did it. You did it.
Right.
But yeah,
It's nuts.
it's everything.
The
Everything's
world we're
crazy.
living in has turned crazy. We never could have imagined this. Um, my grandfather would have gone nuts if he came back and saw the world. My grandfather was a Republican that was very close to being a Democrat. Javits and those guys, we weren't split as a country. Um,
I'm a Republican. I'm a lifelong registered Republican.
right,
Okay,
but you're not
and
nuts.
well, the
Not that
difference.
kind of nuts. Not that kind of nuts. Let's get it
Yeah.
right. Let's get it right.
Well,
He's
he-
our kind of nuts. He's
He
our
may
kind
be
of nuts.
confessing to something. Lifelong Republican.
The,
Let him
diff- the
talk.
difference is
Just talk.
the difference.
Nobody's listening. Talk. Tell us how you're a lifelong Republican.
Okay, the difference is okay. Donald Trump was never Republican, isn't now a Republican, never will be a Republican. Okay, and MAGA is not Republican. Okay,
Hmm.
they call us Republicans in name only, rhinos. They're the rhinos. All
Hey,
right.
just remember how Reagan started out as a unionist and a Democrat, and how he changed.
Right. And I never imagined so many people, okay, were in the woodwork and hiding behind the rocks with such hate, okay? And Trump has unlocked that. He's made it fashionable for them to come out. You know, there's always been some hatred, but it was always kind of, hidden by a lot of people. But when Trump came out and, he's allowed all these people to come out, it's crazy. I never imagined the country was like this.
Overt and covert run hand in hand sometimes. So
Yes.
I
So
I just
by
hope
all
it
means,
gets better. I just hope it gets better for all of us before it gets worse. And
well, there's only one way to change it. All the courts and all the lawsuits and all the convictions and all that
get the
stuff.
vote out.
The only way to change it is by voting.
Yes, and make sure you get 5 people to vote with you.
Yep.
That's the idea.
Yep, that's the whole thing is going to be, getting the vote out, and everybody's got to educate themselves about if they are in fact registered, okay, if in fact they're signed up to get mail-in voting, because a lot of these state legislatures controlled by Republicans have changed the rules, and you may have to re-register, every year in some areas.
Hmm.
So it's up to everybody to make sure that they are in fact registered.
And then
Okay.
there's the gerrymandering that goes on, and it's basically a corrupt system.
It is, okay, but in the presidential election, okay, the gerrymandering, none of that really matters, okay, as long as everybody gets out and votes.
Yes. let's leave it at that. Let's hope it does come back next month, and we'll see what's happening.
Will do.
Thanks for hanging out with us, Robert. Everybody, give it up for Robert Cole, everybody.
Robert Cole, my
Thanks,
man.
buddy. Hang in there for the last segment. We're literally just going to say a couple words before we get out of here. But again, that's Robert Cole, and he's there in Florida with us. And then we had Jerry Feidelberg with us in the first hour. It was not a hard act to follow. You guys were just great. Both of you were great. Thank you very much. One thing I want to mention is you got that book. You've got that book going on, Zig. You've got, tell us about your book. Give us a plug, Zig.
Well, let me say this. The book is Comfortably Zoned in Nevada Pine Tar. I wrote it with George Grimm, who's been on several times. And the main thing I can say, the fun we had in doing it made it all worthwhile.
Well, and that's why we want to share the fun with these guys. So what we're going to do is we have these cards. We have some Topps cards. It looks like Topps cards from 87? It has Don Mattingly on the front. So I believe this is 87, plus we have some 87 picture cards from Topps that went into machines. These are a sealed pack. Apparently there's a few rookies in there, because that's like the whole thing. But what we're going to do is, if you guys order some of these books, we have authors galore, right?
We have authors galore, and we can order the books through Amazon, or in my case, with Comfortably Zoned in Nevada Pine Tar, you could send me the information and a check for $25 rather than send it to Amazon, and I'll personalize it for you.
Yeah, you'll personalize it, and what we're going to do is we're going to add, oh, this is 88. So we're going to add a pack of cards. And here's the cool thing is, here's my disclaimer. Don't eat the bubble gum inside.
Oh, no.
It tastes just like it did in 1988. It snaps when you open it up. But so we've got a pack of Topps baseball cards for you. For every personal order, he'll autograph it. We have other authors. So make sure to go show them a lot of love, because we love doing this show with them. And
Beautiful.
So it's people like Robert Cole, it's like Jerry, it's like all these other people, George Grimm. So again, check out their book, In a Vat of Pine Tar.
Comfortably Zoned in Nevada Pine Tar by George Grimm and Ralph Tycho. It's on Amazon. If you want to be quick about ordering it, you'll get it in 4 or 5 days. If you want a personalized copy, just get with me and I'll tell you how to do it.
It's a great book, by the way.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
I'll give you my, I've read it twice, and just makes you laugh, makes you remember a lot of memories.
There you go.
Who'd have known that I would come up with a book that wasn't a coloring book?
Yeah, and you wouldn't keep it in the lines anyway.
That's the problem with Ralphie boy. On many different levels.
Always outside the lines.
Outside the lines. And
That might be your next book, Ralph, Outside the Lines.
That's really, literally sounds like the title of your next book. You guys, thank you very much. For myself, the Zig Man, we are out of here. We'll see you guys next week on.
Thank you, Paulie B. Thank you, Robert. If you're listening, thank you, Jerry. And we'll catch up with you, Nancy Finley, on a different time. I don't know what it was. She confirmed this morning. She Pacific Daylight, wherever she is in Texas.
But it will happen, folks.
It will happen. She's charming. And you are too, Robert, in a different way.
We'll see you guys next week here.
Comfortably Zoned in Nevada Pine. No.
And Zig in the Zone, guys.
Zig in the Zone.
We'll see you next week.